Well, in the last video, we understood the story of Git, how centralized version system and the SVN evolved into Git and GitHub. Today, we go one level deeper. We'll not just run command, we'll also understand what Git is actually doing internally. So let's just start by building up a mental our mental model altogether. So in talking about Git, what we first do is we create a local folder. So we create a project folder, and then we start having a Git tracking engine in place, right? So we'll have a Git tracking engine in place. And then finally we'll go back and do all this connection with our GitHub, which is like a remote repository. We'll have it. Everything has to start with the creation of the project folder as well. So idea is that we work with Git locally first, then we connect with the GitHub later on. And to be honest, internet is not required when we are working locally altogether. So without wasting time, let's go ahead and create this entire ecosystem altogether. So how do we do around it is that we'll first uh, you know so for the simplicity's sake of the simplicity, I have actually thought of working around with this folder Git learning. So I created a Git learning folder altogether, and I'll be doing all these changes and everything with the Visual Code Studio, right? Okay, so we have the Visual Code Studio in place. We'll be working around with the Visual Code Studio. I'll open my terminal of the Visual Code Studio. This is where I'm going to work around all the part as well. So just make this UI a bit more better. Okay, so I have this folder called as Git Learning, which I already created. If you want to create further folder inside it to make it like a project Git Learning, right? So I'm just going to write a project Git Learning folder. I went inside this folder, and let's go ahead and create a file inside this folder, right? So I'm just going to create a file. Let's say app.txt. Okay, and you can write any content you want. Hey, this is Prashant, right? So I wrote my first file altogether. This is like a normally how you start working with any source of the code. Okay, so what we can do is like we can actually we'll start by putting this in the Git itself. So the first command is that we're going to initialize this as a Git project. So the moment you run through this, it initialized, it says initialized empty Git repository onto this. Okay, so you can see it basically initialized all of it. So if I run the lsal command, so let me just, okay, so it doesn't work because obviously we are on a Windows machine, so it kind of does not work like this here. Anyway, so we just go inside the specific folder, and we cannot see as of now any hidden folder. Okay. Okay, so I can just write an hidden items, and you'll be able to see this .git folder being there, right? So you can clearly see the .git folder, and this .git folder is kind of a brain of the Git. This got created because of the init command that we ran across. Now inside this, you see, inside this, Git basically stores a lot of information. This is the part where it stores the commits, right? It stores the history, it stores the branches, right? It stores all the configurations, right? All the hashes that we will be having it. So it kind of store each and every of those components, right? And you see there are few major things which is already there. So for example, if you closely notice this, there are few important folders. The first one I'll explain you is an object folder, right? So this object folder is the where it stores the commits and files. Okay, then we have this ref folder, refs, right? This is the folder which talks about the branch pointers. Okay, okay, we have this file called as a header file, right? This is basically the current branch pointer. And then we have this config, right? Okay, it consists of all the repos, configurations. Okay, so by default Git does not track files. Git tracks the content snapshot. This is something which you have to understand, which we already understood from the previous discussion as well, right? Okay, so anyway, so moving forward, let's just try to look forward to, since we already created a local Git, we'll be maintaining it from here. Okay, okay, so we'll be maintaining it from here onwards. um but we try to, let's look at it, from a point of view where we create a remote GitHub repository. And how do we connect this GitHub repository to it? So git learning repo, and I'm just going to write YT because, okay, I'm not going to add anything. So, it's going to be a public repository, which means anyone can view this repository, although you do have an option to make it a private, which means team you give the access to will be able to view this, right? I'm not changing anything, no readme, nothing, no adding of any git ignore. I'll be doing it afterwards. We'll talk about this. Git ignore, no licensing, nothing. So I'm just creating a plain scratch, nothing very fancy from here. Okay, so I have this git already being specified to me. What I'm going to do is I'll go back to my current repository, because this is what I want it to connect to, right? So I want to connect my local repository to the GitHub. So I'll run the command git remote add origin, and we'll specify this, which means I'm adding this as an origin, right? So this external repo that you are looking across, which is like we call it as a remote repository. Okay, I'm just adding a nickname to this, and this will be called as an origin. Okay, and this is like a GitHub URL that we are basically adding. So you do that, and then you run this command git remote remote hyphen v, and you see this is an origin which is already being specified to it. So now the origin is specified to this repository as well, right? So look, your local git is now connected with your GitHub repository. Okay, so now that we have made these changes, okay, we can actually look forward to a command called as the git status command. So let's look forward to this git status command. At this point, you see there are few things which is there, right? Since you added a repository, you have some uh, content being there, like a file being there, and says it's an untracked stage, right? So let's start understanding what are we supposed to do from here. So whenever you're in doubt, just run this git status command, right, to understand at what stage that you are in. Few things. One is a branch. So by default we work with the main branch. We'll talk about the branching concept afterwards, and as of now we have not added any files or nothing, right? So first idea is to add this file to a staging area, right? A lot of people think that, hey, this means that file is added to git. I actually, in reality, what happens is you're adding the file to a staging area. So if you remember, we mentioned about an staging area, right? So the file is supposed to get added to this staging area. So first, this specific file needs to be added to a staging area, through which the Git will actually start doing all the tracking and everything from there onwards. That's going to be an idea with this staging area. So without wasting time, let's go ahead and add this specific file. So I do git add and then name of the file, which is an app.txt. You add the specific file. By the way, don't worry about this dot. This is just because I pressed a tab, it automatically fill it across. Dot stands for a current directory, and then app.txt is basically the name of the file. Okay, so once it is done, we can again go back and run this git status command to see. So now it says, hey, you know what? We have added a file. So from untracked files, it came to a stage when it has started keeping a track of this file. Okay, fair enough. We'll look forward to creating another terminal. So I'll just create a new terminal. Okay, so we have this project learning. I'll just have like I see this .git folder is already there, right? So if I just go inside this .git folder, right, and if you see this ls, all of the file, you'll obviously we look forward to these files as well. Let's go across to an objects, right, and you see there's like multiple things which is there. So Git stores file by content, okay, not the file name. Okay, so same content means a same file altogether. Okay, so this is what is basically going to have. So now what we are going to do, since we already have created the file, we have added the file into a staging stage. We now need to commit this file, which means we need to create a snapshot of this file or the stage that we are in right now. Okay, for creating a snapshot, we run the command git commit -m and we write the command. So first commit, for example. Okay, so we wrote the command, which is a git first, here. So what happened internally, okay, at this point? So internally speaking, at this point, right, Git basically created something called as a blob, okay, which is where your file data are there, right? And it is like more like and it creates a tree like structure, right, which is like a folder structure, you can say. Okay, and then it will also create something like a commit object, which consists of more like a metadata of the information that you did, right? So all of these basically gets created the moment you run these snapshot command, which is like a git commit command. And you want to look forward to these information, you can always run this git status to see the current state, and you can see like there's nothing to comment, it's clean. And you want to look across with a log, you can run a command like a git log, and you can look an idea about it. So you see this is commit hash, which is there, right? We call it like a commit id. You can also refer to any commit with this specific id. Okay, so we have this commit id in place. Okay, so now that we have added this file, we have committed the file, but remember this is still in a local computer, right? It is still not in our cloud system. If you want to look forward to it, you can simply go there and do a reload to it, right? You'll see that there are no files, nothing that has been added yet. Okay, so without wasting time, let's move forward to how do we go ahead and add this specific file. So now we have to just basically add this file to our remote, and that's why we run this command git push origin main. So we are pushing and adding this to an origin, which we already created an alias of the remote repository that we added in the very first beginning, right? And the main is basically the main branch. Okay, so we do a git push. Okay, and it says, hey, you know what? It kind of went ahead and it did create a idea with this, right? So now I can just look forward to this folder, and you can see like app.txt basically got created. Fair enough. Let's try to look what basically happened here. At this point, Git did few things internally, right, which we probably have not understood. So when we ran this git push command, right, so what it did is like basically compressed it will basically compress the objects, right. It will find the missing commit on the GitHub. So if there are any missing commit on the GitHub, okay, for example, you have some different commits here in a local computer on GitHub. There's some local commit, or different commits are there, and if there are any conflict or not, it looks forward to that. And yes, if there is something, then it will try to transfer the differences, right. Okay, and then finally it will basically update the remote branch point, because even the remotely it still has yeah. Okay, so even the remotely it still has the branch pointer in place, so it does the same action. So so finally what we did is like git added the file, added, committed, and we finally pushed the file. So it's pretty fast at this point, because it uses, as I mentioned, hashing, local operation, compression, which we saw, and it basically is lightning fast. So today we didn't just learn about the git commands, we learned about how git thinks as well. Next episode we'll kind of understand the branching, the superpower that made git dominate the entire world, and we'll keep on building on top of it. So see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye, take care.